Should we start with the introductions first?
Yes.
Just so
yes, I was just going to welcome everybody. Janet, we were just saying that there are more people booked on, but we'll make a start and we can always send the recording out to people. So, Andrea, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So I'm Andrea Miron. I work as a category manager for People in Corporate here at Worcestershire County Council.
Great.
In procurement, just to specify.
Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla. I'm a commissioning officer and I work in the communities team and in adult social care commissioning.
And I just thought I know Candice and Viv, but I've not met Janet. So Janet, I met Passingham. I'm the VCSE lead in Worcestershire County Council, Strengthening Communities. So Janet, do you want to introduce yourself? Was it Jeanette?
It's Jeanette, yeah. Sorry.
Jeanette. Sorry.
No, it's no problem at all. I'm Jeanette Bizard. I work for Bromford Flagship Live West and operate right across from Shropshire down to Cornwall and right across to Norwich. I work in the community side, so Grants and Social Value Officer, and support charities and communities across the patch to make sure they've got enough funding, compliance, governance and social value.
Oh, fantastic. What an interesting role. It's great to meet you.
And you.
And over to you, Viv. Oh, you're still on mute.
I think I've clicked it again by mistake. Sorry, I'll start again. I'm Viv. I work for Citizens Advice in Worcester, specifically for people with additional needs. So I do an advice clinic at the mental health unit, and I also work with the autistic community. My interest today is with another bit of my job, which is to do with our reporting on outcomes, and that's very much we want to increase that social value that we're achieving. So thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Viv. And Candice.
Oh, hi everybody, I'm Candice and I work at Droitwich CVS, part of the community engagement. I look after the volunteering side of things here. I also do a lot of the signposting and looking after the Moving Forward project on the Westlands estate as well. So various little things that I do in Droitwich.
Not little.
No.
Great, it's good to see you. Thank you. Okay, so on that note, I'll hand over to Andrea, who's going to present the majority of this presentation, and then Carla is going to come in more towards the end. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end to ask you to ask questions and have a discussion, but we'll see how time goes. Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Thank you. So obviously a very nice picture of Worcestershire to start with. We are just going to talk about what is social value to start with, and the focus of the session is how to deliver strong responses in the tenders regarding social value. So just to move on to the beginning, what is social value? Obviously, there is no clear single definition. The social value can be defined in a lot of different ways, but we can say it is it represents the wider economic, social, and environmental benefits created through delivering a contract, which means supporting the local communities, creating jobs, opportunities, protecting the environment, and improving well-being. Social value is also thought of as a way of thinking about how resources are allocated and used to benefit wider society, but also achieving best price. Social value asks us to consider the full impact and wider cost of the services we commission. In smaller words, social value is added value over and above what your contract already pays for and its core requirements. So in terms of thinking of social value, when you respond to a tender question, you would think about things that are not already included in the service specification or the contract itself. So they have to be, social value aspects have to be outside of that. So that is why we think about it as added value to that contract. Okay, now why does social value matter? First of all, it is a requirement in public procurement, which we will talk about in the next slide. It also ensures public money delivers wider benefits because obviously having a contract and then having added value to that contract means that the contract itself delivers more than what it actually has in the service specification. It also supports local priorities and communities. And it also forms part of how tenders are evaluated, probably 90% of the time. Not every single tender will have social value, but generally tenders where VCSEs would apply will always have social value as part of that. So now in terms of the national context, so the National Procurement Policy Statement outlines some of the key principles and priorities that contracting authorities must consider when commissioning goods and services under the Procurement Act 23. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details about the Procurement Act 23 because we do that previously, but if someone does have any questions about the Act and what that means in terms of social value or procurement in general, what we said is if you do have any questions during the presentation, you can put them in the chat and we can reply to them at the end. If we don't have that time anymore, we can send out some responses in an email, so that's completely fine. The NPPS emphasizes that procurement should not solely be based on price, but also consider the broader impact of procurement decisions on local communities, local economies and communities, and societal well-being. So obviously, in terms of this, the national context does specify that contracts should have social value included and monitored as well. So that is a very important part to which we will come back later as well. Now, in terms of Worcestershire, we have a social value charter. The link is available within the presentation on the last slide and will be sent to you as well, in case you don't already have that. So our social value charter has 4 big pillars, and it sets out our commitment to these, which are supporting communities, promoting inclusion and opportunity, protecting the environment, and growing the local economy. What we aim to do is work with suppliers to deliver measurable impact, collaborate with partners, including yourselves, and create long-term benefits through continuous improvement. And in other words, you already most likely, as a VCSE, already do deliver social value anyway. It's just a matter of actually knowing what that is and translating it in the right way in your tender responses, which sometimes can probably be a bit difficult to translate and in a measurable way. So in the next slide, we are going to talk about what does social value look like in Worcestershire, and obviously some examples of what social value can actually include. Obviously, the list is not exhaustive, so there can be many other examples added to the list, but obviously we try to keep it slightly short. So in terms of what does social value look like in Worcestershire, as I have mentioned before, any potential suppliers that tender for our contracts will be asked to demonstrate how they can deliver against our social value approach that I have just went through in the last slide. So the first part of your response should probably be focused on actually researching the social value charter and understanding what it asks you to do in terms of social value. But in terms of some examples, we have work placements and apprenticeships. Again, just have to mention this again. If work placements and apprenticeships are already part of your contract and you are getting paid to do that, that is not social value. So obviously, if your contract would be for, I don't know, energy, and you offer work placements, and that is social value. So just need to make sure you always make that distinction, because obviously contracts are different. So if the spec asks you for one of these, that cannot be considered social value. So work placements and apprenticeships, supporting caregivers and vulnerable groups, partnering with local VCSs, obviously, or partnering with each other in that case, volunteering in communities, using local suppliers, environmental initiatives such as tree planting, and obviously the last example is an actual specific examples. We have done last year a county-wide hamper initiative to support foster carers through one of our sustainable suppliers. It's that. So this year, the plan is to do the same thing. So obviously how this works is we have built a website page for Worcestershire County Council where our suppliers who want to offer social value can go in and purchase these hampers for the foster carers. The aim is to raise enough to have at least 250 hampers, just like we had last year. Obviously, more is better. And obviously give these hampers to our foster carers. It has been an absolutely amazing initiative last year with a lot of great feedback. And obviously, suppliers can also put this as a social value initiative in their tender responses. When the tender question asks you, what have you done in the past, which you can actually say, we have contributed to the social value county-wide hamper initiative in Worcestershire County Council to support foster carers by purchasing, I don't know what number of hampers for the foster carers. You can also even attend the event and see them opening the hampers. It's very, very nice. And it actually makes you feel like you're doing a difference for them. So obviously that is an actual specific example of social value which you can get involved into and contribute to. Obviously that is not the council asking for money. It's just a way for you to contribute to basically the societal well-being we were discussing earlier. So yeah, that is a good example. Obviously, if anyone is interested in that, we can speak about that at the end. Now I will hand over to Carla for talking about the social value engine, and then we can go through tender responses after that, and how tips, let's say, for good tender responses.
So in the Strengthening Communities team, we purchase license for Social Value Engine, and although it's not a requirement in order to respond to tenders in Worcestershire, we thought it was helpful to mention it, and it is one way that you can show the evidence of your social value. So the engine is a tool that assigns a monetary value to the outcomes that you're delivering. So say you've got 10 volunteers and they each deliver 10 hours. There's financial proxies that put a financial amount on that, and then you put in either the amount of volunteers or the amount of hours, and it gives you a corresponding value to the volunteers that you'd be able to then include in tenders. So it gives you that clear presentation of social value return. It gives it as a social return on investment. So it'll say for every pound that was spent on this project or contract, it provided so many sort of £3-4 back into the local economy. So it translates whatever your proposed activities are into the social value outputs, and it just means that it makes your commitments more tangible and evaluable against other tenders. So instead of listing actions, the tool helps you show the real outcomes and the benefits that your service will generate from its social value. So it gives you a framework then to track and measure, because you do it as a forecast when you first put it in, and then you can repeat as an evaluation after the project or contract has concluded, or annually, however often you want to measure it. Can you do the next slide, please?
Yeah.
So any organisation organisation can go directly to Social Value Engine. And just to say, there are other social value tools as well. Lots of people have heard of Tom's, and you can purchase those directly. This just happens to be the one we're using in the communities team, and we've found helpful. We have negotiated with them, so VCSE organisations can purchase licences through us. It works out to, I think it's about half price for large organisations and about a third of the cost for smaller organisations, or the other way around, sorry, maths isn't working. So it gives local VCSE organisations affordable access to the tool. It's just a note on there, our contract with them is due to end at the end of October 2027. So any licenses that are purchased through us, we won't necessarily have a contract after that date. So then any ongoing contract would need to be directly with Social Value Engine. There's the link, if we share these slides, that take you to their pricing and to their website if you wanted to find out a little bit more about them.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say as well, if you do use Social Value Engine, it doesn't necessarily give you a higher score. It's just a good way of putting the monetary value within your tender response, but there is absolutely no requirement to purchase it in order to apply for any tenders.
Thank you. Now for this part of the presentation, we are just going to look at actual examples. First of all, the example tender question, and then an example of a, let's say, weaker response, and then an example of a stronger response. Each of those with also notes on how they could have been improved regardless. And then we will go through the tips for actually writing great responses for social value. So I'm just going to read this through. I'm not going to read the example tender responses word by word. I will leave it on the screen though, and we can go from there. So for the example tender question, generally this is pretty standard. However, they can be different based on the tender. Always, every single social value tender question will have the social value charter against it. So if you are ever like, what should I write here? Always go back to the social value charter of WCC. So for this, for the purpose of this example, we have this question: how will your organization deliver additional social value through this contract, including environmental sustainability, local economic impact, and community benefit? And then you would normally have in each question some pointers, things that you might want to mention. Contribution to local employment and volunteering, support for disadvantaged groups, environmental sustainability practices, added value to the local community beyond core service delivery, which again, I know I mentioned it a few times, but it is very important because oftentimes people kind of detail things that are part of the service spec, which makes them score less than they would normally if they would focus on other things that are added value rather. So just keep this in mind. Now on to this, which is what we have considered to be a weaker response. Just to specify, this is nobody's response. We just wrote it up. So you can take a second to read that. But in terms of why we would think this is a weaker response, at the first look, you can see there are no percentages, first of all. So one really important part of social value responses is to offer measurable outcomes, but also deliverable. So obviously anyone can say anything in their tender response, but the aim of the council is to actually take you up on the social value offer. So anything you would write in this response must be things that you can actually deliver against, and not just basically invented percentages just for the sake of having percentages in the response. So in terms of measurable social value, there is nothing in this response to reflect measurable. It does mention the social value charter, which is a good point. So that is always going to be a good point to mention the charter. However, the measurable bit of it is really important as well. The response is also considered vague, because when you say things like we will aim to deliver, but you don't say exactly how you would do that, you just say you aim to deliver it and what you aim to deliver. This will include supporting local employment and so on. That is all great and it sounds great. However, there is no actual detail on how the supplier in cause actually wants to do this. Their approach, and obviously no measurable impact to that. But again, at least they have mentioned the social value charter, which again is a good thing. And the mentioning of this will include this is also good. However, as I said, it is the measurable bit that is missing and the how of the response, which you would be surprised how much of the time is actually missed out, because obviously people want to say, I will do this, I will do this. However, the most important part for evaluators always is how you are going to do this. So you would probably rather have less social value aspects detailed, but detailed well enough so that you give confidence to the evaluator that they actually can approach you and say, hey, I saw you want to do, I don't know, 25% new roles in disadvantaged groups, because that is one of the bits of the next response. So obviously that is quantifiable. It is much easier for them to be confident that you have actually thought it through and you have a plan to deliver it. I will move on to the next one. If, like I was saying, we will share the slides anyway, so you can have a closer look at these responses as well. Now, in this case, we have here the social value stronger response. Obviously not perfect, but slightly better than the other one. So as you can see percentages such as we will ensure that at least 80% of our workforce is locally based. That is very good, because obviously, how are you going to deliver measurable? We will ensure that at least that is way more confidence giving than the previous response. Because obviously it gives you actual numbers. So you have that, you have create 2 apprenticeships per year, which again, the council can come and say, we want to take you up on this offer. We have, I don't know, these people that would be interested to have an apprenticeship at your organization, or we can organize some kind of, career fair, or, stuff like that. So there is a lot of ways in which we can take you up on the social value offer. As I was mentioned before this, we will promote inclusion by targeting 25% of new roles to disadvantaged groups. Again, if this is not already part of your contract, that is, and so on. Quarterly outreach sessions to improve access to opportunities also is a good way to mention how you're going to deliver that, and obviously give confidence to the commissioners, and so on. Now, obviously, this also mentions the social value charter at the beginning there. It has measurable social value activities that go beyond the service delivery. But again, it also has points on where it can be improved, such as making delivery relevant to the contract being applied for. That's a really important bit as well. So obviously, if you are talking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with the contract, even if they're social value, they could score less than things that would be directly related to the contract itself. Specifying what volunteers will be doing. Obviously, ideally, this would be aligned to the service that you would be bidding for. So that is also a good thing to kind of mention how you are going to deliver it. Because specifying what the volunteers will actually be doing is obviously a good way to do that. Or specifying that the apprenticeships will be in Worcestershire, which the response didn't mention Worcestershire. They just mentioned that they would create 2 apprenticeships per year, but that can be anywhere. It's not necessarily bespoke to Worcestershire itself. The response also doesn't exactly include how activities will be measured, monitored, and reported on. Generally, this obviously would be part of the contract and the monitoring information, but that is just our WCC way of doing things, to which your measures would come into. So obviously the supplier would need to already have a way to measure, monitor these activities. And obviously that would feed into our monitoring information and so on. So that would obviously make your life easier as well, having already had this in place. And including outcomes. So obviously what would be the intended outcomes of the community capacity building workshops that were mentioned in the response. And the response also did not mention examples of previous social value delivery. I know that in the other slide with the actual question, that is not necessarily mentioned. Please include examples of previous social value delivery, but that is expected not just in social value, but in all, generally in all quality questions, because obviously this would give extra confidence to an evaluator that, okay, this supplier has done this before and they have done it this way and it worked. There is a success here. So obviously that would help them, as I said, have that confidence into the response that the supplier would actually deliver the respective service or the respective quality question response exactly as they have worded in the response, rather than it seeming, sorry about that, rather than it seeming something invented. So now to the tips of how to write a strong social value tender response. So there is quite a few things that I probably have already mentioned throughout the presentation, but I will just kind of summarize everything. So one of the most important things is to tailor it to the service, because obviously when you link your social value commitments to the contract, and avoid, like we looked at the weaker response, the generic statements, and to explain most importantly how you are going to deliver that added value, and maybe the way that you deliver the service can add that added value. It's really important to mention that in the response itself. Obviously, in terms of the word count, that can also be a challenge. That's why it's really important to prioritize what you write in the social value based on tailoring it to the service. As we mentioned before, be measurable. It's really important because there are evaluators who are going to look at your response and say there is no numbers. That can go away, basically. So they don't even want to look at it, because we have seen so many social value responses. The best ones are always the ones with measurable outcomes. So yeah, like you said, include clear quantifiable commitments, percentages, numbers, hours, anything that can actually give confidence that you have thought it through and you can deliver against it. Be realistic and deliverable. As I said before, you have to be able to evidence and be able to achieve what you say in your social value response. We are, I have to mention, in a time in the council where we really want to get more social value out of the suppliers, out of the contracts, and obviously out of the suppliers as well, because it will obviously help the council achieve its objectives, and also improve the local community, because that's really important at the moment. You also have to use the tender documentation, so always review the spec, make sure you read things very, very well, the evaluation criteria, the quality questions, including the social value question, and any other appendices, documents that are included in the tender pack, to understand what evaluators actually are prioritizing and basically what you should focus on in your responses. Aligning to local priorities. So most importantly, there have been numerous responses that I've seen even from local suppliers that talk about Worcester County Council, which does not exist. So always make sure that your references that you make to Worcestershire in general are, Worcestershire rather than especially if the service itself is Worcestershire based and not just Worcester based. It depends on the service, so that's why the documents must be read very well. So yeah, reference Worcestershire priorities, demonstrate how your activities support them. Reference key frameworks, as I was mentioning a few times before, the social value charter and any other relevant local strategies where applicable. If for the specific contract there are local strategies or even different various statutory acts that you might want to mention in your responses, they are very, very well received. And as I mentioned before, include evidence of past delivery. They don't have to be really long case studies. And generally, if you add that as an additional document, it can't be considered part of the response. So you must ensure that any of that is included in the response. Provide brief examples of similar social value outcomes achieved on previous contracts, which builds credibility. When I say similar social value outcomes, I go back to the tailoring to the service bit, because obviously the more relevant your examples of previous delivery are, the better. And focus on outcomes, not activities. You have to explain the impact your actions will have on Worcestershire, on its residents, depending again on the contract itself and what it asks of the supplier. Very important, mentioned before as well, is show how it will be monitored. So you do need to mention tracking, reporting, review mechanisms. It depends on obviously your internal systems and how you would do that. But if you don't have that already in place, it would be good to know how you plan to put those in place as well. And just to kind of end that, to keep it clear and structured, it is really much better when the response is structured easily enough for evaluators to score. So what I would recommend, not just for the social value question, but for any question that you would answer as part of the quality evaluation, is to, if it has subpoints, I would respect those subpoints. Obviously, you don't have to rewrite the titles to lose your word count and stuff, but just ensure that maybe you put 1, 2, 3, that's completely fine. No one will mark you down for that. So it's just, the easier it is for evaluators, the better. Obviously, they can't say, oh, your response was structured badly and I'm going to score you down. So that generally doesn't happen. You get marked on the content, but the more easy it is for them to read it through and understand what you're trying to say, the better and easier it is for them to score at the end of the day. So obviously be concise, avoid vague or repetitive language, and just a small mention, because obviously we are in the AI era. Always check, human check your responses, even if you use AI, which is not against the law or the rules or anything. We are actually in a time where it's encouraged to use AI. Just make sure you always check it through, because it can be wrong, or there can be references left in there that may not be necessarily relevant to you or your organization, the tender, Worcestershire, and so on. So it's really important to kind of be sure of that. And that was a mouthful. So that is it for the time being. I did, like I said, add the social value link here for the charter if anyone needs to know more and hasn't seen it before. And we also have the links for the social value engine earlier in the presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see you again. And obviously take any questions if anyone has any questions. If you have questions but you would like to think about them first, always you can send them through and we can reply to them offline via email. That's a good sign. No
Do
questions is
you-
always a good sign.
Do you, or have you already been doing that sort of, some of that, including those areas, those tips in your responses, whether it's to tenders or grants? Is that something you've been familiar with doing already? The social value type responses? Or is that not something you've done yet? Sounds like you haven't done it.
This is a question for all of us, Esther.
Yeah, yes. Well, for you,
Yes.
for you, Viv and Janet.
I received an email sort of a couple of months ago from somebody who was a social value, I can't think what her name was now, social value worker, part of the social value team, quite a big company, not local to us. And she emailed asking for she was trying to place some volunteers, and they got a contract with Worcestershire, and she wanted to look at one of our volunteering opportunities for a large group of people. So that's the only kind of insight I've had so far into social value. But yes, that's it really, all I've been aware of.
Okay. Thanks, Candice. Is that something you'd like to work towards getting more involved in then, Candice? Is that your interest
Yeah, I think
in?
so. I mean, I'm obviously come across the term, but I didn't realise there was a social value kind of team in these big organisations. So it was quite interesting to hear about her role and to find out a bit more about it. Yeah, which is obviously why I'm here today. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It sounds like, Janet, that's similar to sort of thing you're doing, isn't it?
It is. So I work across mainly Gloucestershire, but obviously for social value, it's a bigger patch. But certainly for the compliance and governance, it's over Gloucestershire. I am working in Worcestershire, so we have given some social value out in Worcestershire already. We're working with charities and children excluded from schools or needing further support to get them back into the classroom. Especially following COVID. So we are working with half a dozen schools in Worcestershire, and we have provided social value. We do evaluations as well, so we're similar to yourselves. So we take the valuations, and we do have a toolkit on our site as well. So we are looking for something specific to help our communities and customers. I also am a trustee of the Gloucestershire VCSE Alliance, and I provide training and development for either grant fundraising or for social value. So I do the similar sort of training out right across the whole of Gloucestershire for all the charities.
That's nice.
Oh, brilliant. Sorry, remind me what the name of your organisation is again.
Yeah, it's Bromford Housing. So Bromford
Housing,
Flagship
yeah.
Live West.
Yeah.
Now we've merged 3 times.
What's
last
it
few
called now,
months.
sorry?
Bromford Flagship Live West.
Flagship Love West.
Live West. Yeah.
Live West.
We shorten it to BFL for short.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So the reason I came on is to find out more about what Worcester is doing, and to see really, how you're supporting your social value, and your tenders, and basically to see if there's a way that we can work together as well.
Oh, okay. Work together with the council or with VCSE organisation?
Yeah, either. Yeah, so I work with all the different councils in Gloucestershire, where we've got about 6 different councils. We've got Gloucestershire County Council, but then we have Gloucester, Cheltenham, and they're all separate. Stroud, Cotswold, so they're all separate entities. So I work with all of the councils right across.
Okay. Ah, it's interesting. So Viv, have you got any thoughts?
No, I mean, I haven't been involved at the kind of bid writing end of things. I more see the other end when we've been measuring what we've been doing. So I was just hoping for a bit of a general overview of how the system works, which has been really helpful, actually. So
good.
Thank you.
Good. There have been previous training courses. I'm trying to remember if I've seen you at any of them, like with around procurement. No, I don't think it was somebody else from Systems Advice. But we've got another session coming up in September.
Okay.
That's general procurement. So that might be of interest for you as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Any other thoughts from anybody? No. I was thinking, as Andrea was saying, about the hampers, because I know, like, certainly Candice, you do hampers at Christmas for the community, don't you? It's something you're already doing, and you know, it's like charities. You're always, you know, I've run charities for years, and I know it's just always such a challenge. So just to reiterate what Andrea said, we're not asking you to to worry about that, but it's just good. It's a really good example of things. But we know that's what you do every day, all day, every day, is doing that sort of work. And you know, certainly with moving forward, there's all that, there's things that you're doing on the Westlands, Candice, that's huge social value. It would be amazing to capture that in
absolutely.
I think you've got the engine now through your community transport. That's right.
Okay.
Carla.
Yes, we might well have. I'm not sure.
Yes. Because of the community transport work, there's been is it Sarah? Sarah, who's been involved with that, has got a license. You might be able to. Is that fair to say, Carla, that the CVS can use it for the moving forward project? So I know you need to do lots of reporting, I imagine, over the next year or so. Is it coming to an end?
Yes, yeah, possibly, yes, sort of late next year into 2028, yes.
So it's really amazing community project in the deprived area of Droitwich that moving forward, that has been lottery funded to the Droitwich CVS for the last 5 or 6 years, isn't it?
Yes, probably, no more than 5 years, I just said. Yeah.
So I think the engine would be really helpful in your end of project reporting.
Yes, definitely. I'll ask Sarah about that. I mean, she did, when I said I was coming on this, she did sort of seem aware of everything. So yeah, just been keeping that to herself, obviously.
She might not have realised that it's
no,
it's not, you know, that it potentially could be used for other things.
We also use social value engine.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's great.
Have you found it?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, they're just developing a bit further onto dashboarding and place insights. So it's really good to see the developments they're making and improving what they're doing.
Yeah, we've found them to be so helpful as well, with when there's trying to put projects on there and going, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's always somebody that's very knowledgeable and helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's so refreshing, isn't it, to get that ongoing support without always being charged for it, and just having that free weekly training or drop in. Viv, I know you, obviously Citizens Advice are very much tied in with strengthening communities with all the work you're doing. So and you've got your own social value system there, and I imagine you are able to report and provide the information Andrea's been talking about in all of your tenders, etc.
Yeah.
So that's great that you've got that national, sort of the context of the national Citizens Advice as well as the local.
Yeah, we've got access to a lot of data that we can draw on. Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else for Andrea? I mean, it's fantastic to have her expertise here for this hour, and that we can draw out of her before we finish.
I just mean, this is purely out of interest, really. Just how many bids you would actually look at in the course of a year? What kind of volume of you know, is your team looking at and deciding between?
Well, it depends on the tender. Like, for example, I will give you the worst example and the best example. The worst example is where we get the most, that is for supported living DPS, because obviously there are so many supported living suppliers out there. And the DPS works as we do the evaluation in rounds. So obviously we open it once a year. You can imagine what that is like. Last round, we had 85 applications. Obviously, they are not all being evaluated because thanks to the process, if someone doesn't have the 3 years of experience, they are out anyway. So that kind of makes it a bit better. But the first question is evaluated by 3 people. They have to do the whole 80 plus ones to obviously assess if they have the 3 years or not. So that is a really, really bad one. Obviously, like I say, it turns better as we go on into the process. But we had as well, tenders where we had only one bid. So that's easy, you still have to evaluate it, but at least, it's only one bid. The bad part is when you have one bid, obviously, if it's not suitable, then that's a bad thing, because you would have to do it all over again, or obviously just go direct award, find someone who can do it, because you can't just keep running tenders without any response. But yeah, generally it depends on, obviously in my area, because I work on adults, corporate, and communities, like a lot of tenders here and there. A lot of them are mini competitions. For example, on the 23rd of June, I have 3 tenders closing. That's going to be fun, with a lot of applications to go through. Is expected, obviously. It always comes down to the last day for a lot of suppliers. One thing that I forgot to mention, and I should have, is don't leave it to the last day. Every single supplier does this. I don't know how and why. Obviously, I do this too. When I was in school, the last day was the submission deadline for me, not before. So I do understand the idea, but the system can go wrong. Like, it's very, very possible. So it's always good to, to be able to have a little bit more time if that happens. And obviously, if you have any questions about the process, always ask them as early as possible. Read the documents as soon as possible and ask the questions, because obviously I personally always try to publish clarifications like a few times during the process, but not every council has this. At the beginning, when I started here, like 7 years ago, the process was very simple. You ask the questions, and one time the council publishes the responses. That's it. Well, what if they have more questions? You're not going to answer them? Like, for me, it was just not. I can't do that. I want to tell people what to, to respond to their questions, and make sure that they have all the information to be able to apply to the tender, and obviously we need to be able to help them rather than make obstacles for them. So everything can be different for every single council, and even for the same team in the council, people work differently sometimes. But yeah, in terms of tender responses, there is a lot of them. I don't evaluate them, so that's great. I just do the preliminary checks on them, which is good, because obviously if the procurement would do everything, that would be bad. It would be really hard. So that's why the service areas are really helpful with that part.
I know this isn't connected to social value, but just so that you know about the questions, I think, could you just clarify, Andrea, about the opportunity, that window of being able to ask questions?
Yeah, so obviously, as I said, it will always be in the tender guidance that you have. So that will tell you the process. You can ask questions by this date, and you would get the final responses by this date. So you will always have the timescales there in terms of that. When it comes to the clarification questions, we normally publish them on the intent system. That's what we use, the intent, the procurement system. It would be published as a clarification, which means that another tab would appear. Once we publish one, another tab on the project page would appear. It's generally in form of an Excel. The supplier name is never shown, so it's just literally questions. The reason of this is, obviously, if you as a supplier ask us a question, we have to tell everyone else the response, because then obviously that's preferential treatment to yourself if we don't. So that's why the process is at Generally, it's a few days. It depends on the amount of questions. Sometimes we get one question per tender, and that's amazing. But I did just have one with 50 questions that I had to basically publish every few days to ensure that people have time, and someone still complained and they want an extension. Like, you can't make everyone happy, definitely. But obviously, if 90% of the people are happy and there is only one unhappy, that's a win for me. So that's kind of how the process works. And the questions would be submitted via intent and published via intent, just for the audit trail to be maintained. And one other thing, obviously, I don't answer the service related questions myself. So obviously I have to go to the commissioners for that, which sometimes takes a little bit longer because obviously everyone has different priorities and things they need to do as well. It's not just one tender and we're all sitting here waiting. So, sometimes it can be a couple of days, more time of waiting and so on. So it just depends on the kind of question it is. But whatever is commercial procurement, I definitely just answer that myself. So.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
Any more questions or comments?
Nope.
No? Okay. We're slightly early, but I hope you found that
That's
useful.
okay. We get 5 minutes back for a
Yeah.
little coffee.
Yes, thank you so much for coming, and it's great to see you and meet you, Janet, and see you all soon.